Hey, everybody, welcome to another conversation. We are in the room again. And the magic of this room is like so overwhelming to me because conversation after conversation after conversation, somehow there's something incredibly magnetic about offering to have a conversation with a stranger. Every time I post it on the internet or put it in my social media, I get inundated. I have appointments every hour on the hour for an hour from like 8 in the morning until 7 at night. People just wanting to have conversations. And I don't think it's because they want to have conversations with me. So I started to think about why would people want to have these conversations? And then I realized who wouldn't want to be in a room where they felt loved and accepted, listened to and heard, and acknowledged and validated, where they've actually felt seen sometimes for the first time in their life, where someone's taken the time to really care enough about them to hear what they think and feel. And so that's the magic of this room. And in that space, oftentimes what happens is everything we are not falls away and everything we are emerges. And it's beautiful, beautiful process. It doesn't happen every time. Sometimes the conversations are boring. Sometimes they are exciting. Sometimes they are transformational. Sometimes they bring tears to your eyes. I think this one's going to be a pretty good conversation from the 3 seconds I had with my guest Jeremy Roadruck in the green room. I have to mention this is being sponsored by the book that's over my left shoulder, the Mosaic. The Mosaic is a story about a boy who loses his parents. It's a longer story. We don't need to go into the whole story. But what happens is the people he meets are people that he doesn't expect to meet. And what it shows him is the way he sees the world is exactly that. It's the way he sees the world. And if he slides himself to the right for a moment and looks at the world that's there without his interpretation on it, he wonders what he would see and if he's ever seen that world. That's a lot of what happens in this room, and that's why I love that they're sponsoring the show. They heard the show. They said, we're going to sponsor it. It is my book. It is my publisher. It is all that, but it's still a beautiful thing to have that happens. So it's turning into a monologue, which is what I don't want. So I want to create the room and the space for Jeremy to come in. Jeremy, welcome to the conversation. How are you, brother?
I'm doing good. Thank you, Danny. That's a great intro. I love that. That was really good.
Thank you. So here's where perspective, and for the listener, I want you to see it. Here, I felt like I was rambling on too long, and Jeremy goes, "No, it's a great introduction. I love that." So I love that. Um, what's important to you?
Lots of stuff, nothing simultaneously sometimes.
I see we're gonna have one of those conversations. I love you already, brother. For those people who are completely confused by that, what is it you can say to them? Because there is a segment of society that looks at that like myself and says, I'm so excited for this conversation. And there's another segment of society that goes, what? Like, what is he talking about? How can it be a lot of things and nothing at the same time? Tell us what you think, what you really feel.
So I've been through a great many seasons in my life and a lot of different life experiences, not all of them sunshine, skittles, and rainbows. And what I found is as you go deeper, if you're doing it well, you simultaneously go higher. You begin to see a bigger perspective or a bigger point of view, and lots of the superficial stuff falls away, and you see a commonality or a connection through a great many things. You could almost think of it like the universe is this giant three-dimensional hologram. And even if you have one tiny little corner of it, if you can just shift your frame slightly, and I'll use what's his face, Roadruck Gently's holistic detective agency. But I use the idea of if you could move 1/1 millionth of a degree of 1 millionth of a degree, and you just pivot that tiny little bit, and everything is totally brand new. Everything is shifted, and it's such a minuscule, tiny little pivot. So as you go deeper and see the commonalities, you simultaneously go higher, and you see all the connections. You see all the beauty of it if you choose, because you can still always be a human animal and get personal and get angry and why me, and they cut me off in traffic, that SOB. And you can do that too. That's available as well. So there's a famous Buddhist master, and he said that the mountains and the valleys are on the same line. And you don't understand that until you really get this idea of going deeper and higher at the same time. And so
Yeah.
there's a lot of stuff that I care about. There's a bunch of stuff that doesn't matter. It's all fundamentally, it's all games and stories. And if we
Wow.
stay in that place, life is so much more fun for you and for other people.
Listeners, I want to jump you into the conversation. What an amazing, beautifully crafted thought that you may or may not agree with, but I want you to think about it. Is it all games and stories? Like when you look at it from a different perspective, that life that you are suffering around, that life that you're happy in, is it possible it is all just games and stories? The Mosaic taught me a beautiful thing. It taught me a formula for change. It says our thoughts become our words create our stories, and our stories become our life. If you're not happy with any of the elements of that equation, change any of the elements of that equation and everything will change. So it may sound a little crass or may sound a little like uh, cavalier to say it's all games and stories to someone who's suffering right now. But take a look at it. Elevate from it. Go up 30,000 feet from your life. And what's your life look like from that point? Am I correct? Am I sort of
Yeah.
speaking your language?
Yeah. You're in the same vein because, I went through some pretty horrific stuff as a child and that pivots and I lived 20 years in anger and that causes things. But then when you can internalize that, resolve it, release it, then you go, wow, what an amazing gift. Because, and I can only say that for my life. I can't say that for anybody else because I'm not qualified to speak for anybody else's life but mine. But I suspect if you can work through things and release things, and you go, wow, look at who and what I became. Right, the bigger the villain, the bigger the hero. To resolve
Yeah.
it, to solve it, to dominate it, to win, to accomplish. And so, we in my world, we have a three variable game: what you think, what you feel, what you do. Your body, your mind, and your emotions, and they all co-create. You're having a crappy day. I get it. I have crappy days. Put on your favorite song, put on your headphones, jump up and down and go woohoo for one song. Pump your hands into the air, and all of a sudden you feel different, right? And we can study the brain and say, well, you're releasing dopamine and serotonin and oxytocin, you're doing a biochemical reset. We could be trendy and say we're biohacking. There's all these labels for it. We can say we're mystics and we're having a spiritual experience. Whatever the story, if you change the behavior, it begins to change the feeling, it begins to change the thought process. And if you change the feeling and the thoughts, it generally leads to changing behavior, which then leads to the life you live,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It's all belief systems, which is the story, and it's all behavior, which is the reality of what you're living. And if no one's given you a good example, fantastic. Just don't do what they did and you'll find something better.
Love it. Let's come more personal if we can.
Mm-hmm.
I want to try and remove you from this beautiful knowledge that you have and this place where you so naturally teach to a place where you and I are just sitting here vulnerable, naked, and raw. And I want to ask you what makes you happy?
Decisions, right? Because it's up to me to decide. My daughter is overloaded and overwhelmed, and she's yelling and having a meltdown. And I can take that personally, and she's not listening, or I'm not leading, or I can just decide, wow, what a great gift because she spent 14 weeks in the NICU or 13 weeks in the NICU, 14 weeks early, and she might not have lived. So if I choose to be happy about the resistance I'm getting and go, wow, what a great opportunity to pivot, right?
Yeah.
So I love, I used to say I hate not having the answer. I love having the answer. I love learning and growing and shifting, but also being able to contribute that. Because if I just learn and grow for myself, it dies with me. And what good would that do to anybody? So,
So it's really interesting because up until the moment I mean, there's some things that everything you say I agree with, but there's some things that I completely disagree with at the same point in time.
mhm.
And one of those things is that I was recruited by a company called Vistage, and Vistage takes CEOs and has them lead programs for other CEOs.
Hmm.
One of the things that they do that I love, which was probably the only thing they do that I love. I didn't love it. I didn't do it. But they said to us, people come here expecting us to give them answers, to
Hmm.
answer their questions.
Hmm.
What we do is we question their answers.
Hmm.
And I thought, God, that's exactly what I do. I wish I would have said it first, but I have to credit them for saying it, which does
Oh,
me no. I mean, I love crediting them for saying it because I
yeah.
think what a beautiful thing that is. I love when I don't know the answers
Hmm. Hmm.
because I spent my whole life knowing the answers. I spent so much of my time pontificating, knowledging, giving, and there's such a beautiful space to being empty
Hmm.
and allowing myself to be filled by something that has nothing to do with me.
Hmm.
Do you resonate with that at all?
Yeah, absolutely. Because the one thing for everything that I think I have an idea about, I'll never say I'm right, but I will say when you're right. And I'll never say you're wrong, but I will say when I'm wrong. And so I
Okay.
might be curious. That was an interesting thing that I just heard. Could I feed that back to you for a second? I'm not going to
Sure.
say you're wrong.
Oh,
I'm just going to explore and go deeper. Make sense?
yeah.
But I won't say I'm right. I have a suspicion I'm on the right path, but I'm not a done deal. There's always more to learn and grow and expand. And there's a constant, maturity and age are two separate creatures.
Totally.
Yeah.
So let me ask you, what part of you is filled up right now that you wish was empty?
Nice schedule. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Because with everything going on, and I'm growing and I'm starting to expand in some areas, so time with my wife and my daughter is becoming more of a premium, and we have to be more deliberate about carving out time.
I want to ask you to go under that thought. I want to ask you if,
Hmm.
to like if that thought weren't available to you, because I get that, and that's
Hmm.
beautiful that you want to empty up your schedule so you have more time with your friends. I want to ask it more personally. I want to ask you what part of your knowledge base is so full that you're not able to receive new information, if any.
I don't think any of them are too full because I have a prodigious ability to like consume and understand and relate and correlate and cross reference. And so I'm always open to pivots and go, oh wait, that's interesting. Hold on, say that again. I hadn't put it together that way before. That's beautiful. I like that. And it's very easy to acknowledge. There's people that know things that I don't. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Especially on the human emotional side, because I lived a lot in my head as a kid, very analytical, had to be safe, like all these different programs of fear. And so to see people like my wife is she'll meet you and within 5 minutes of you guys meeting socially, you're telling her your deepest secrets. And I'm going, how in God's green earth do you do that? That's just
Yeah.
amazing. And so for all this capacity and all these things that I have, that human connection side, she's like an unconscious genius at it. And I marvel all the time because I don't function on that empathy level the way she does. I
Wow.
have empathy and I can appreciate where people are at, but I'm
Totally.
so quick to go strategy and well, let's change that. Let's what have you thought about this? And
Huh.
if they're open to that,
You're a guy, for God's sake. Let's
that's
fix
right.
it. Let's right.
Problem solver, masculine in my
Right.
core.
Um, we've dived into the deep end without even walking into the shallow end.
I waste time.
All right. Who are you and what do you do?
Well, I am a work in progress. I'll steal that from, I think it was either Buckminster Fuller or E. E. Cummings. I'm not a human being, I'm a human becoming. But my name is Jeremy. Last name is Roadruck, and I am known as the Kung Fu Guy. I am a Kung Fu master. I am an author, a speaker. I've written a couple of books I've written the only parenting book I know of with a money back guarantee. And I work with families and kids. I've been doing that for a quarter of a century now.
Wow.
Um, and I grew up in scarcity and I grew up in pain. I had parents that gave me unconditional love and thank God for them because I would have been a monster without it. But I was a jerk. I got hurt very young and had to protect myself because I didn't know who to trust. And my parents didn't know about it till I was 35.
Wow. Um, care to flesh that out a little?
Sure. Do we need to give like trigger warnings or anything like that?
No.
Okay. So I was sexually assaulted at 5 and 6. 5 by a security guard in Saudi Arabia, 6 here in the US by some kids up the street. And between those two experiences, I chose to make myself wrong, not the situation, because little kids don't disassociate very well. So I made myself wrong, and I felt like I had to hide because, 5 years old, you go past the security gate and the guard abuses you. Then, if you tell your parents, you're going to get in trouble because you weren't where you're supposed to be and you weren't telling the truth. So you can't tell them that. So you have to hide that. And so that became a mantra. And so, 6 years old, I'm running a teenage brain. Go
Time,
ahead.
slow down. What became a mantra?
That I had to hide. Like I had to protect myself. So I'm constantly running. The most basic game I played was survival.
So you're saying two things to my ear. Tell me how they're one to you.
Hmm.
Hiding and protecting myself. How are those the same?
Well, if you can't find me metaphorically or literally, spiritually, psychologically, if you
Then
can't
you won't be
find me,
able
if
to
you don't know
hurt
where
me.
I am, then you can't hurt me. I'm untouchable.
Got you. Got
So
you.
so I had to create my own safe harbor. So everything became life and death. And if you've ever played tic-tac-toe with a 7-year-old who thinks he's going to die if he loses, very quickly I realized the energy imbalance. Because before the abuse, I was already crazy energy. I was on a leash and pulled out of being killed running into traffic when I was 4. We lived in Turkey and I climbed on the roof of the house using the fig tree in the backyard. Like I was just fearless and I was just curious about everything. I would run and just do whatever. There were times I fell asleep standing up in my crib because I like invented FOMO. I don't want to miss anything. And the birds chirp, I'm awake 100%, no hesitation, complete energy opposite of my brother. And then the abuse amplified that, but then it put this filter that I have to hide. So I'm in survival mode. I don't know who I can trust. My back is always to the door. I always know the environment and I know the energy mismatch. So now I have to become a very good observer and
How
mimic of
old
others.
how old are you when you start to become aware of all these things?
The 6.
6.
Yeah, I quit smoking at 9.
Quit smoking at 9. It's not
Mm-hmm.
started smoking.
Started at 8, but quit at 9. So fourth
Okay.
grade. Yeah.
So let me jump into something because there's so much packed in. Like your sentences are books. So let me just jump into something and slow you down
Sure.
a little bit if you
Sure.
can.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Um, dive into it for me. A moment where the guy who is completely fearless becomes so fearful he has to hide to protect himself. Because I bet there's some people that are in
Mm,
that maybe don't even know the fearless state, but are sitting and hiding to protect themselves. That like to believe that they're fearless, but they don't believe that anymore because they're in hiding.
right.
Talk to me from
So
that place.
so before the abuse happened, the kids I grew up with, we were in a military compound in Saudi Arabia, and so our compound was surrounded, right? Because we're foreign, all that fun stuff. But there was construction. This is back in the '80s or very early '80s in Saudi, and there was construction, and so there were like sand dunes, and there was equipment and excavation. And there were like tunnels, and there were pits and all that kind of stuff. And my friends and I, we used to go in there and we would play and we would make stuff. We would dig little caves and just do stuff because it was just nobody cared. It was just debris from construction and a bunch of foreign kids, nobody, all that fun stuff. And so whatever you could imagine, you could create it, right? And you had a team of other kids that were curious and inquisitive. And, we would dig these holes and that would become like, where we have this castle and then there's like this moat. And
Right.
so our imagination was very close to the surface. And we had that safety net of, the guards and the gates and, were these basically privileged kids to an extent. I mean, you don't think military kids in a foreign country are privileged, but 5, 6, 8 years old, what do we know?
Yeah.
So we're just living our lives and just completely just doing our thing. And I was a kid when I was 4. We were in Turkey, and my parents made friends with one of the guys that ran a copper shop, Copper Ali. And like when he had to go back to his village, they ran his store for him for a few days. So you're running around the community in Incirlik, and Turkish bazaar is just normal, and the rugs and just being a part of that culture. I got lost in the bazaar one time for like 45 minutes, and The Turks gave me a Coke, sat me down, played with me, and go find the white couple missing a kid. And they found me, but for 45 minutes today, think about a kid getting lost
Right.
like that. And how
Isn't it
many parents
bizarre?
would be just panicked,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? There were no cell phones. There was, so it was just, there was no fear because there was nothing to be afraid of. You just lived
Yeah.
your life, and there's just breathe.
So the place I want to get to is, in your particular case, the thing to become afraid of was the security guard and some of your friends who abused you. But every one of us has no fear until there's something that comes to be afraid of.
Correct.
We play in a world where whether that happens at 1 or 5 or 10
Mhm.
or 30, it does. We live a fearless life because we don't know we have to be afraid of anything until something happens, and it
Mhm.
makes us afraid.
Right.
I want you, because you're so articulate, I want you, if you can, to map out that moment where fearlessness turns into fear.
I remember I walked out the gate, past the stuff, and I saw the security guard's shack, and it was an elevated thing. And then he came down with his hand, holding onto his junk, making kissing noises. And I'm a 5-year-old kid. I don't know. I'm not connecting anything to this at the
Right,
moment. And the next moment that I had was snapping my head backwards, and I hit my head on an M16 that was being used as a pillow. We were under an awning, and then I got up and I ran. And as I was running, like, I had to rebutton my pants, and I had the thought, the feeling of wrong. Like, it wasn't a conscious thought that was wrong, that was inappropriate. There was no consciousness to it. It was a feeling of something wrong happened, but I didn't have a target for it. And
yeah,
so then I became wrong,
yeah.
and I had to hide. Not the thing, the moment, the guard, the action, none of that, because it wasn't a disassociated experience. It was associated. So I am wrong. I have to hide.
So I want to tell you how much I relate to it, not in the situation, the circumstances, and the players, but my dad passed away when I was 13 years old.
Hmm.
My dad was my hero.
Hmm.
And I was about to go away to camp, and my dad was leaving on a business trip a few days before I was going away to camp. And he came in to kiss me and hug me and tell me stories and be with me. And he said, "Okay, Danny, I'm leaving early tomorrow morning, so I'm going to say good night and I'm going to say goodbye, and I'll see you and visit for Visitors Day at camp. Okay, so I just want to let you know I'm leaving early. Don't be concerned when I'm not here in the morning. And I want to tell you how much I love you and I want to be with you and I want to." And I said, "Dad, what time are you leaving?" I mean, I'm not going to I'm not going to sleep past. I'm going to give you a big hug before you go. Like, tell me what time you're leaving. He said, "Danny, I got to be out the door at 4 o'clock." I said, "Well, I'll wake up at 4 o'clock. Of course I will."
Hmm.
And I didn't wake up at 4 o'clock.
Hmm.
And my dad never made it to Visitors Day because he died of a heart attack making love to
Oh,
my mom 4 weeks later.
wow.
So for me, and this is why I'm interested in sort of how you put these things together, because clearly there was no fault of yours in this situation. Just
Right.
as clearly there was no fault. My dad didn't die because I didn't wake up. My dad
Right.
died of a heart attack making love to my mom.
What's a
But
quality
in
way
a
to die?
quality way for my dad, not so quality for my
Yeah.
mom.
Not
It
for
wasn't
her,
such a
no.
good right. It wasn't.
Yeah.
But but here's what happened for me, and I know there was no rational reason for it. But the pain of living in a random world where bad things could happen spontaneously was
Hmm.
so overwhelming to me
Hmm.
that I chose to make myself the cause of that by saying, had I woken up, he wouldn't have died.
Right. It's a way to give yourself certainty in an uncertain world,
Bam.
even if it's complete BS. Belief system.
So is that what you did also by making yourself at fault?
Operationally, yeah. Because without having a target, and younger my hearts and minds don't know how to disassociate, right? They don't know how to separate. And you were at a young enough age. It's a natural instinct within us to take control of situations, even if it's uncontrollable. It's our mind's ability I'm going to contextualize this in a way that allows me to continue to exist, not thrive, just survive, because our biochemical drives are survival. And
Yes.
when we start to get beyond survival is when we start to get guilty about stuff. Because
So
if I have more than I need to survive, I'm taken from someone else, right? Maybe. Couldn't they just create more? I don't know. And that whole quandary begins.
right. So I want to circle around to a concept that you mentioned when we first started the show,
Mm-hmm.
which was it's all something in stories. I can't
It's
remember
all
the word.
games.
It's all games and stories.
Mm-hmm.
And I want the listener to think about now in context to the stories we've just told, how you might have felt when you first heard it and how cavalier that might have sounded because you're going through whatever you're going through, or
Right.
you may not agree with it. And now I want to say that same statement in context to the stories that Jeremy made up around him being wrong to gain some control, and the
Mm-hmm.
stories that Danny made up about him being responsible for his dad's death. And isn't it all just games and stories? And the
Mm-hmm.
belief systems that we create are just based on stories that we've told ourselves and games that we're playing with ourselves to
Mm-hmm.
hold those beliefs, but those beliefs are not true.
Right. That's exactly
With me?
it. Yeah. Well, the story is the justification or the rationalization for the game, and the game is how we get or give energy. And you're either going to get it, motivate it, encourage it positively, or you're going to manipulate it negatively.
Right.
Positive, win-win, you feel good, I feel good, motivate, we win. Manipulate, one or both of us feels negative, we feel small, sad, cold. And manipulate as an I win, I don't care about you. I can't
You,
care about you because I'm in such a place of scarcity.
yeah.
And so
You went
that's
back
the
into teacher. You went back into
that
teacher mode.
it's my natural, that's my natural
I,
bent. It's my filter.
I,
But
I
it's
know. I'm trying to get behind the guy who's the teacher, okay?
it's
Because I know it's your natural, and you're brilliant also, and the way you craft what you craft is beautiful, and I want people to be able to experience that after they get to know you.
right. Well, to me it all links. So it's like I can't not the metaphor is like I have hands and then look, oh, they're reversible. How cool is that? It's like, but so do you. You have hands and they're reversible.
Right.
Wait, I have hands that are reversible? No way. I remember my teacher was trying to teach us how to do like how to tell your left hand and your right hand. They're like, oh, go like this and look at your hands. One makes an L and one does not. And I'm like, whoosh, I got two left hands. Whoosh, I don't have any left hands. Oh no, whoosh, oh no, it's the wrong left hand. And the teacher's like, shut up, boy.
You must have been a card.
I was a
Uh,
pain. I love kids like me now because I know how to work with that mindset.
yeah.
But I was such a pain in the butt for I pitied the adults around me. I'm like, you guys had to put up with so much crap because I
Yeah.
refuse to be nailed down. I'm not going to be defined by you in the slightest. Try reverse psychology. Great. I'm going sideways. Now we're both mad. Nerf you. I win.
So, can I share with you something? And again,
Hmm.
only want to share it with you if you promise me that you'll put trash can rule into effect. Trash can rule is that if it doesn't make any sense, you throw it right in the trash can. You don't hold it for a second.
Sure.
I just want to tell you a feeling that happens for me in the conversation that we're having so far. Maybe it'll be helpful. Maybe it won't. Maybe it's garbage. Maybe it's not.
Take the shot.
When you go into teacher mode, I'm disconnected from you.
Hmm.
When you go into personal mode, I'm completely connected to you.
Yeah, that's an area of growth for me. Lecture mode
Okay.
Jeremy is or college professor Jeremy is one slice of me.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
it's brilliant. And it's so, first of all, thank you for acknowledging that. And thank you for, taking it because I thought about whether I should say it or not because I don't really challenge people. I just let people do their thing. But when you connect so and so vibrantly that when you're disconnected, it's like a big gap that's there.
Mhm.
And why do you think you go into teacher mode when you know that you connect through personal mode?
Usually it's a desire to serve. And I've been in this like personal development space for like 36 years. So this stuff just rolls out and a lot of it is linked and integrated. And so it's easy to run pattern or run scripts because they're there, right? I've spent a lot of time crafting, honing, articulating certain things. So it's not fully conscious. It just pops out because it's, oh, here, let me connect these dots. They're really
Yeah.
easy to do.
One of the things that Mosaic has taught me, which has been really beautiful, and it's been a big change because I think the reason why I can relate to you and see the things that I see in you is because you're not unfamiliar to me. You're very familiar. I know that game and I know that story. Okay, and I got to a place in my life where I was tired of fixing people, helping people,
Mhm.
changing people, correcting people, lifting people. And I looked at what a mosaic actually is. A mosaic has no vertical relationships. It doesn't, no one's teaching anybody, no one's learning from anybody. All that happens is the pieces are coming together and holding each other.
Mhm.
And in the very act of coming together, they are absorbing each other and changing together by just
Mhm.
becoming vulnerable and real and connecting. Does that make sense to you, first of all?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Is it something you would seek? Or is it something that feels like that's just, I'm just who I am, this is who I am, I'm a teacher, I'm a do this, I integrate,
This is kind of the stage I'm at this point in my life. I mean, I can't say where I'll be in 20, 30 years.
yeah,
So I know this season of my life, this is where I'm at and what I've accomplished and how it's connected and how it's coming back out. And I know it's a work in progress. Like I said earlier, human becoming, not a done deal.
yeah,
So for me, it's like I look at a mosaic as I would look at a yantra, right? And it's just the entire knowledge of Buddhist wisdom or the all knowledge of human consciousness is in that picture, in that diagram, if you have the resonance to unlock it all, right? In Buddhism, there's a concept of undifferentiated dharma. Buddha said nothing except make sound, and different sentient beings pulled it at different levels of awareness. I have a book that a friend of mine wrote, and I read it when I was 25, and it totally transformed my whole perception of everything. And every 5 years, I reread it. And somehow, and she passed away last year, but somehow she added more wisdom to it every time I read it on the printed out version on my nightstand.
right,
I'm like, woman, you got some amazing kung fu because this has gotten better as I've gotten older. I see more that I missed somehow.
yeah,
If I had
yeah,
seen that earlier, how much time would
yeah,
that have saved me?
yeah,
But you weren't ready to receive it yet. Duh.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
like,
yeah. Let's change it up a little. Let's go
mhm,
into a lightning round.
sure.
By the way, I suck at lightning rounds, but let's try it anyway,
Instead of
okay?
vacuum cleaners.
Are you a dog or cat person?
Cat. I like dogs, but I love cats.
Coffee or tea?
Both.
Not just politically, but the way you live your life. Are you conservative or liberal?
Prefer to be anarchist, but people tend to like want to protect their kids, so everything goes sideways. So I am fiscally more conservative in the real sense, and I am socially more liberal in the real sense, not in a political domineering gun to your head, do what I say on either side of that.
Right.
I'm much more libertarian, let people be themselves.
Fabulous. Um, would you say you're shy or outgoing?
Because of the early patterns in public, I tend to be shy until I get a read on a room. But if you know me, I'm really outgoing.
Yeah. Do you trust easily or is trust hard for you?
Usually I trust easy. I take people where they're at, but I also don't put a lot of expectation on them. And if they fall short, then they told me where they are. And that's where they are.
So dive into that for me a little bit because a person who trusts easily, I see that before the assault, but I don't see that. Tell me how a person who's been through that abuse.
I've internalized it and released it, and it's no longer the energy is different. So I have the ability to protect myself physically, mentally, emotionally, socially. Like I've got all kinds of layers of skills, and I don't need to sit with my back to the wall anymore. I don't need to know all the exits anymore. I don't have to have every single answer. I can be, I don't know. I can share credit. I can recommend other people to do things versus no, look at me. I can do it all. I do everything. You should work with me. And if you don't, blah, 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 blah. I can let it go. And I couldn't do that
Yeah,
15 years ago, even. It was constant scarcity and no, look at me, notice me, validate me, pay attention to me. And it's like, no, it's cool. Give the spotlight to somebody else. Having kids has helped with that too, being able to share the spotlight on them. And so somebody shows up, they say, hey, I'd love to do a thing. Great. Let's see what you can do. And I'm not going to go 100% because that was another pattern, was 0 or 100, nothing in between. Okay,
Yeah.
cool. Well, here, have 10%. What are you going to do with it? Here's 20%. What are you going to do with it? And so there's checks and balances, and you show me by your action and how you operate, how you handle things. You show me where you are and what's going on with you. And if you're not full court press, that's fine. Not everyone's going to be a black belt, but it doesn't mean I have to treat you like, well, if you're not a martial artist, you're worthless. You don't understand the
Right.
true meaning of life.
Right.
I had a kung fu brother that I wouldn't shake his hand when we met. And it was because shaking hands is an old ritual between warriors to say you're not carrying a weapon, but you've trained to be a martial artist. That means your whole body is a weapon. That means you're a liar, and I don't believe in lying.
Wow.
He hated me for 3 years.
So you talked about the fact that you don't go full in or don't expect people to go full in. So
Mhm.
is that the way you trust also? That you trust, I'll give you 10%, I'll give you 20%, I'll give you 50%, I'll give you 100%?
I don't know that I separate trust out versus I do what I can to meet you where you are.
Okay.
I mean, it's like if I'm meeting a cat that I don't know, I gotta help you feel comfortable. And I gotta meet you where
Right.
you are. Like you can't make a cat sit on your lap unless you have food. You can do
How
that
does
with a
somebody
dog.
how does somebody make you feel comfortable?
Hmm. I don't know that they do so much as I'm kind of filtering for their actions and their words matching, their body language. Are they tense or are they relaxed? Is their breathing like there's a lot of sensory acuity of physiology that I'm
Yeah.
paying attention to. And I don't think I've ever really paid attention to that until you asked me that question.
I like that.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever really. Yeah, I haven't really thought about it until like just a couple of seconds ago.
So in the arena of trust, for me in the arena of trust is that we hold the space for someone to feel completely comfortable in the space that we're holding,
Mm.
for them to be able to let go of everything they're not and allow everything they are to emerge.
Mm.
And so I'm stuck on this word trust, and I'm sorry if I'm like a
You're fine.
broken record.
No, you're fine.
Um,
For me, it's about expectation. Like I don't. I try not to put expectations on people. You should be blah blah blah. If anytime I say should, that's my rules. That's not reality, and that's not you. That's my
right,
frame
but
of
you're going back
reference.
into script now.
Well, but I'm going to the how can I help understand where your shoulds are? Then I can meet you there. We can be
But how
even
about if
key.
you, how, how about if I want to understand where your needs are? What do you allow me to see in you that allows me to get that?
Yeah, I don't hardly ever. Yeah. I do such a good job of meeting my needs, or my wife does. So I'm good, and I'm not here for that. That's my answer. Like 99% of the time.
I feel you
Yeah.
thinking about that and seeing
Yeah.
that.
Well, I'm
Like,
hearing
is
that
that
answer going, oh, is that
right?
really?
Like, I mean, is that really the person that you want to be? That you're not here for anything from, like, what sort of relationship does that create with a person? If I'm always being the giver and never the receiving anything from
Oh
them.
yeah, no, that was totally dysfunctional in my like intimate life forever. That's that my wife and I, she's been a very good giver to, and I've been able to receive from her. And that
Yeah.
was I've only had two relationships really that were like that. Most all the rest were some sort of transactional. So yeah, I tend to show up to serve, and I don't really worry about my needs getting met because I know they're going to get met. So I don't I don't need to get my needs met because they will be along the way, and I'm fine. Like I've spent so much time just getting from that place of deficit to get that place of no, I'm good. What do you need? I don't know, a back scratch. If you rub my shoulders, I'm good. Like I don't have a huge list of needs because
Right.
I'm just I feel so alive and connected in so many ways that I don't like feel in deficit. I don't. Hmm.
First of all, First of all, I love you. By the way, I love I love the intimacy of this conversation right now. Can you feel a shift from where we were to where we are right now?
Hmm.
And I love your ability to walk that place, and I really admire you for it, and I really thank you for it, because I think there's so many people that are listening that are on some gradient of where you're talking about, or where I'm talking about.
Hmm.
And I think it's just fascinating to hear that as you say your own words, you're not 100% sure if you actually believe them. And not that you don't believe them. It's not like you're lying to yourself. I don't mean that. But
Right now.
when the words come out, you say, "Is that really what I think?"
Yeah.
I guess the place that I want to ask you is, do you think every time we receive something from somebody, it's because we need something?
Mostly. Sometimes I receive stuff like my daughter gives me stuff. I don't need it, but I receive it because I want her to have that feeling of being able to give. So that's a part of her.
Beautiful. So, pause right there.
Yeah.
So, in a world where your daughter just wants to give you something and you don't need anything, but you just receive it for the sheer joy of having her feel the gift of being able to give to you.
Yeah.
What's that feel like?
It's good. It's fun because it's just the craziest thing about being a dad is like you're given this human being, you have this human being who's completely like or 90% something blank slate, and you just get to make crap up. And until they learn later, like you were full of shit, they're like, that was the coolest thing ever. And it's like, yeah, just make stuff up. So like we have family rules, we make up stuff all the time about just how we're going to handle things. And we don't like how this is going. We can all suggest rules. She's just turned 6 yesterday. She can suggest a family rule and we'll vote on it. And then yeah, right. So
Wow.
we no longer go canoeing without extra snacks. That's a family rule because we went canoeing for 4 hours and ran out of snacks at hour two. And so if you ever had a 5-year-old who's hungry and tired and thirsty and there's not any water and there's not any snacks, it's not a fun experience. And so she was
No.
like, we need more snacks. Yes,
Good
ma'am.
rule.
Family
Good.
rule.
I love it. Um, I want to ask the listener to become a part of the conversation right now, and just ask yourself, what do you feel about needs, and what do you feel about receiving? And are you okay receiving even if you don't need something? Can you hold the space for someone to give to you something for the sheer joy of them just being able to give to you? And it's so easy with a child to do that, but how about with the other people in our life that really just want to give to us, but we don't need anything from them, so we hold them at bay?
Mm-hmm.
I want to make it personal for me, because my brother just sent me this assessment, and my biggest human need is for freedom. Well, what happens in my biggest human need for freedom is my need for family and belonging like freedom is number one, family and belonging is tied for last, and there are only
Mm-hmm.
five of them. So it's not like it's a big thing, but it's a big thing. I mean, and I started to look at it and I said, well, hold it. How can my need for freedom and my need for family and belonging coincide with one another, cooperate with each other, help each
Mm-hmm.
other to create something that is more not out of sync with each other? And I would imagine in your life, complete assumption, lobbing it over the net for you to slam it down my throat or knock it over the fence or do whatever you want to do with it, that there are people in your life that would love to be able to give more to you than they can. And the space isn't there for them to be received because you don't need anything. True or false?
It's probably true. Yeah, there's a sequencing but I'm on a mission. I've got things I got to go do, so my time is now at a premium. So there's probably people that would like to give more and they just don't know how. Or I haven't given them that vehicle, or I haven't given that doorway, or haven't shown them that path, or said there's an opening.
I want to invite the listener in to
Mm.
just see the honesty of Jeremy. And Jeremy's a very well crafted story. And for him, in the midst of his very well crafted story, to show how true it was, the statement when I said to him, "Is there some place where you're so full that you're not, that you just wish you were more empty?" And he said, "No, I think I can turn on a pivot when I hear something that's going on." I want you to watch him doing that right now. And I want to just respect how honest his words were, because some people will say that, but it's BS. And it isn't BS because I'm watching it happen right before my eyes.
Oh,
And
it's
it's
a
not
belief
because
system.
it's a belief system.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I try to act with that what I consider to be integrity, and like, well, no, this is true. Well, no, no, well, but no, actually, no, you're right. Again, I won't say I'm right, but I will say when you're right. And yeah, no, yeah, there's some room in there. Okay,
Yeah.
so that's that. I see that now. It's like, okay, cool. I got a place to grow. Awesome.
Love it. Love it.
Pros and
Beautiful.
grows. What's good and what needs to improve.
Beautiful. Um, when you look at the world right now, do you believe it's talking to us? Do you believe things talk to us? Do you believe our bodies talk to us? Do you believe our businesses talk to us? Do you believe the world is talking to us?
Yeah, I think everything. Rather than talk, I would say music, but yeah, everything is
Okay.
singing. Everything has communication. Yeah, absolutely.
So, what would you say the world is singing to us right now in the midst of a pandemic, a civil rights movement, a Me Too movement, our structures falling apart, our
Yeah,
belief
it's
systems?
it's cacophony. There's so many things. So my frame of reference is you either give a loving response or cry for help. And there's so many things that aren't crying for help. They're screaming for help. And they're drowning each other out because there's just so much need. The world has been driven to living at effect instead of living at cause. Because living at cause, you got to take ownership of your stuff, right? You just pointed out an area that I could grow and I could get defensive and I could justify and I could rationalize or I can agree. Because no, yeah, actually, I do need to do that better. Okay, cool. But that's my wife's ability and her genius to connect to other people. What's
Good.
one of those things is the ability to share and flow and listen. The same thing you're doing is giving people space to just be. When I work with
Yeah.
couples, see, heard, felt, understood, appreciated, supported. You give your partner those 6 things. Why would they go anywhere else? They
Yeah.
can't because you fill them up on so many levels.
Yeah.
But that's what's missing in the world at large because people are screaming, look how much pain I'm in, acknowledge me, validate me. It doesn't solve their pain, but it's a starting point because now it accepts that they're not crazy. It's not made up. It actually exists. Okay, where do you want to be?
Yeah.
Okay, well, now what steps can we take? Like we could begin to structure that. We could begin to create a strategy around that. But we have to acknowledge the reality of where somebody is. Not you shouldn't feel that way, right? That's my wife's previous relationship. She was made wrong for feeling, and she was told, come back and talk to me when you're calmed down and when you can be serious. And with me, the mantra is you're allowed to feel what you feel. You don't have to
Yeah.
justify your feelings to me. You get to feel it because it's real. I might not agree with what's triggering it or what caused it or where it came from, or it could be totally an illusion after the fact. That's your decision to make. You're allowed to feel what you feel. I have to remind her of that. You're allowed to feel
Yeah.
what you feel, babe. It's cool. What I'm upset about, and it's just, I shouldn't, honey, it's okay. You feel what you feel. Well, I shouldn't feel this way. Well, but you do.
Right.
So let's deal with that.
Right.
Right? Just that acknowledgement. If we had more of that in the world, that people really were seen and felt, heard, and understood, then we can get to the appreciation. We can get to the support. But you can't support someone if you don't understand them. You can't support
Yeah.
someone if they don't feel heard. Your support is disingenuous because it's an
Yeah.
illusion.
Yeah.
Right? Am I supporting you or just getting a hand on your ass to lift you up because I don't want to touch your butt? I mean, those are two
Yeah.
different realities.
Do you feel seen now? I know you were invisible to protect yourself. Do you feel seen now?
Yeah, absolutely. I gave up though. I gave up the need to be understood, and I found that to be very, very freeing because
Yeah.
then, because my mind works in an amazing way. To expect anybody else to understand that, I'm setting myself up for pain. When they can just sit and appreciate and go, "Wow, your mind is like wow," I'll be like, "Yeah, it's fun." That they're meeting me, they're seeing me.
Yeah.
To expect them to function the exact same way I do, that's folly, because no one can do that for anyone anywhere ever, in my
Yeah.
experience so far. My wife doesn't understand me all the time, but she appreciates me.
Yeah.
That makes me feel seen
Yeah. I
because
love
she
that.
knows she can rely on me. She knows she can lean in on me. She knows when the chips are down, I got her back. That's the important part, especially in an intimate relationship.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Jeremy, I want to thank you so much for sharing your time with us. It went fast.
it did go
Um,
fast.
it really went fast, and there's tons more. I like when I said to you, each sentence is a book. We could have gone so much more into so many different things. I didn't even get to the things that I really wanted to ask you because what you were saying was so interesting that I said, screw what it is I want to ask you because I just want to stay with where you are. Um, how do people get in touch with you if they want to get in touch with you?
Easiest way is Facebook, Jeremy R. The Kung Fu Guy. I'm the only Jeremy Roadruck on the internet. There's only about,
Okay,
I think, 200 Roadrucks in the world, something like that, two, 300.
fabulous.
So yeah, I'm not that hard to find.
So will you do me a favor? You're going to send me a headshot, and you're
Yes,
going to
sir.
send me all your social media links. I'm going to put those in the show notes for people to get in touch with you.
Yes,
I want
sir.
to thank you so much for showing up. I want to thank those people who listen to these shows, um, and I want you to see how every show is so different. And what I got from today, the most beautiful thing that I got, is these little transition moments that happen for Jeremy and for me too, when we allowed ourselves to just be in this space where it was okay, where like I try to come as a gentleless as I can into these conversations, and I realized I was picking up an agenda, and I wanted to drop that agenda. And I'm sorry if I put an agenda onto it, Jeremy, because I didn't really want an agenda. Um, and and the agenda that I have is that people feel loved and accepted, that they feel
Mhm.
listened to and heard, that they feel acknowledged and validated.
Six
And
things.
and I just felt like the one place I just wanted to get to know you
Hmm.
behind who you say, what I read, and I want to thank you for letting me in a little. In a short period of time, you let me in quite a bit, and I appreciate that. I want to just also say how much I appreciate, and I want to ask the listeners to do the same exercise. Take what you hear all the time, take what you say all the time, and be able to, like, when you hear something new, consider it. To question your answers a little bit because I think it's really beautiful. Um, we were complete strangers when we walked into the room. I had no idea who this guy was. I had no idea what was coming down in the room. I can tell you I'm leaving this room loving this brother because I just something about him that I love. And when we take the time to be with somebody and just listen to somebody, what happens is strangers become friends. And when our world is full of strangers, we live in a very strange world.
Mm.
But when our world is full of friends, we live in a friendly world. And I, for one, would like to vote for making the world a little friendlier place right now. So I challenge everybody at every show to go up to someone they don't know and just ask them how they are, to invite a conversation with a stranger, to see what happens, and see if the process of becoming friends. I mean, you don't have to go out and do everything together, but just that you have a place in your heart where you feel the people and you invite those people to be your friends. Again, Jeremy, I thank you for showing up. Is there any last thing you want to say?
Biggest thing, if people can trade expectation for appreciation, life gets amazing.
Beautiful.
And
Beautiful.
it's fantastic. Did you the world of strangers, did you come up with that quote or is that from somewhere? Because that's awesome.
I think I came up with it.
Well, I'm gonna have to quote you and share
You
that
can. You,
because
you don't even
it's,
have to quote me. Just share
oh
it.
no, I have to quote you because I like to cite sources, but that's freaking brilliant.
Thank you. Every
I
once in a
love
while,
it.
a blind squirrel catches a nut. All right. I want to thank you. I got to go. The next call is
Yep.
already in the room. I got to go, but I
All
love
right.
you. Thank you.
Thank you. This was
Folks,
awesome.
folks, if you like the show, share what you like with people you like so that the show grows and people get to hear it. And please invite somebody into your life that you don't know. Have a great conversation with them. Until next stranger comes, be kind, be safe, be friends, and be well. Ciao.
Bye.